Good afternoon. Thank you. As I just said, I was so busy I forgot to check the World Cup score. So if anyone has an update, I'll be happy to take the updates as we're in the meeting. Okay. Public comments. Do we have any public speakers? Okay. Approval of minutes. If I can ask for a motion to approve the minutes, please. In favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Linda, commitments, completions, and other assorted things like that.
Let me first start with a small change to the committee work plan. The work plan had a report this month on our MWBE participation, but that report is quarterly, and you may remember that Michael last did the report in April, so it's just an error. It will be next month. We will move it to its right place in the agenda. That's the only work plan item. In terms of commitments and completions, hopefully next month or soon thereafter, we'll have a new commitment plan for you all. In the meantime, I continue to report on completions, and in May we completed $669 million worth of work. This was mostly New York City Transit's acceptance of R160 cars and hybrid buses, as well as work by B&T on the Cross Bay Bridge. That concludes for this month the discussion on commitments and completions.
Any questions? Oops. Any questions? Okay. So the first real substantive item here is on the New York City Transit car fleet. And, from one perspective of the capital program, I think, from any perspective, one perspective, it is clearly the place where we have spent over the course of the 25 or 30 years of the capital program. It's a place where we've spent the most money in our program. We've made the decision over a long period of time that it was critically important to have a car fleet that was in good repair. As a means of being able to run an effective and reliable system for our customers. It wasn't the only thing that we needed to do, but it was at least a necessary, if not sufficient, condition of doing that. My request in this presentation, which I think Carmen is going to give and will follow, is that we spend less time really going through the facts and the history of some of this, which I think many of us have been through multiple times, but I think as Carmen has gotten into this now, he's brought to the fore some questions and thoughts about where we could be going with it, what some of the issues are, where the future might hold for it, and the way in which we're thinking about those types of challenges. And I think that's the conversation that the committee would certainly, at least the chair would certainly appreciate getting into as we do it. So, but I'll leave it in your hands.
Thank you, sir. I will begin today the presentation on the subway car program update with a brief update of our rail plan, our refleet plan, and plus I'll talk about ongoing car purchases and our rail car plan for 2010 through 14, that time frame and beyond. But before I do, I just want to say while I'm fairly new, I feel that I have walked into an agency with arguably, there's no question, the best car fleet in the world, and I'm very proud to be here, very proud to be part of this. And I'm sure as everybody in the room is aware, as the committee is aware, we've recently accepted the last of the R160 cars. That initiative came in within budget and on time, something for everybody at New York City Transit to be proud of. And when you think about it, the R160 car fleet by itself is larger than any other car fleet in North America. So, I mean, if you compare it to just that one car class to Chicago with 1,200 cars, it's far beyond that. To start, I'll go through quickly at the chairman's request through some facts and get right to the future plan. But I know you've seen this, but this chart is updated with the R160 information and also the retirement of 80 R44s. As shown on the chart, in the A division, 2,769 cars. That ranges across 4 car classes. In the B division, 3,730 cars across 8 different car classes, with 1,569 that are 75-footers and a little over 2,100 that are 60-foot cars. And again, with a fleet of about 6,500 cars, that's larger than most of our international peers, including Moscow, London, and Paris. Shown here is the 12-month moving average mean distance between failure for the entire fleet since 1971. It began a dramatic improvement with the general overhaul program, the SMS, and the new car purchases in the 80s. The general overhaul started in 82 with the R36s and ended in 92 with the R44s. SMS started in the 90s, or in 1990, and tracking of MDBF started with the new tech cars in 2001. And new cars have been purchased in each of the capital programs since 1980. Shown here is the mean distance between failure since 2008. Through April, New York City Transit's overall fleet MDBF was nearly 167,000 miles, 13% higher than the 148,000 miles reported to CPOC in the this past December. The slide also shows the combined recent 12-month average MDBF levels for new cars, the classes of 142, 142As, 143s, and 160s. These car classes as a whole are well above the fleet average. The older cars, the 32s and R68s, are averaging about 30,000 miles below the fleet MDBF during this period. I have to stop and just brief you, as I did for the TA committee this morning. In recent weeks, we've learned that we were not calculating the R160 mean distance between failure consistently with the other car classes. And while the story is absolutely wonderful that today we have a mean distance between failure for the R160s that is at 372,000 miles, there were a number of situations or incidents that should have been put into the calculation that were not, and that dated back to January of 2009. It was brought to my attention through car equipment, and in essence, as the cars come on the property, the first 4 million miles that the cars operate, the defects and the mileage is not included in the MDBF calculation, as is the first 60 days that any new car comes on. The mileage is also, and the defects are also not in the calculation. But once that period is over and you've met those hurdles, everything should be in the mix as it is for every other car class. And so we found ourselves in a situation where we have now included that information. The MDBF for the R160s is now at 372,000. 100,000 miles is what we asked the vendor to produce the cars. So 372 is really something to be proud of. But just to finish that briefing, I've asked internal audits to take a look at, just to be sure across all the car classes that we are in fact reporting consistently, and that is being done and will be reported out. We will know the answer later in the month. Operating benefits yes, sir.
Not to slow this, given what I said, but I do think one of the really important points of this is also the point that having made the investment in regard to thinking about the maintenance program, we've managed to keep up the legacy equipment in the way that we've kept up the legacy equipment. And I think that one of the concerns that I know many people express is that sometimes there's a disconnect between our capital investments and our operating investments, and we don't actually combine them in quite the way that we should be combining them. Certainly I'm someone who expresses that concern about our station program sometime in the way that we've done this. And I think this, to me, is the model and the example that we really need to work toward. Yeah. Because it's not just that we were able to raise the MDBF for the legacy cars, it's that we were able to keep them there. And we kept them there through the maintenance activities, not through more capital investment.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at it, fleet overall, it's 167,000 miles, and that's again that goes to your point, and something to be proud of. Operating benefits, as reported previously, new car investments have enabled an increase in maintenance productivity since 2000. The car maintenance workforce stayed relatively constant at about 4,000 positions, while the fleet grew by 500 cars and mean distance between failure by 30% fleet-wide. Since 2000, 148 positions have been eliminated from the baseline due to efficiencies, saving approximately $13.8 million annually. Target budget reductions from the new cars have come from lengthening inspection cycles by approximately 10%, reducing inspection team size on 4 to 5 car units, and improved reliability. And additional budget reductions in 2010 will be achieved by extending the SMS cycles and eliminating the R44 SMS. In terms of future savings, potential savings include, for example, regenerative braking at 720 volts in all new tech cars could save energy amounting to $53 million over the next 40 years. Currently, New York City Transit's new technology fleet captures approximately 25% of regenerative braking power. Varying the HVAC temperature set point by 1 degree could save $25 million over the next 40 years. Cutting car weight where possible also saves energy. In the R160 composite flooring saved a significant weight, approximately 700 pounds per car. Additional weight savings specifications include deletion of a redundant structural element, such as the secondary collision post. And also, I've just learned that the truck weight on the R160s, when you compare it to the car models that they replaced, are some almost 3,000 pounds lighter for each truck. So it's about a 2,500 pounds. So it's about a 5,000 pound reduction in that car versus the car that it's replaced. Regenerative and lightweighting to existing and future cars could save 700 million kilowatts annually, representing 44% traction energy consumption. And there's also a possibility in the future to further reduce the inspection team size.
Carmen, 2 questions on that.
Yes.
First of all, does lightweighting it carry any safety implications? My husband always used to joke that he would want me to drive a Sherman tank because of the way I drive a car, and that a heavier car is a safer car usually. Is it the same thing with subway cars? If we lighten these up, do we have issues with accidents?
I don't believe we are, and we're well within the standards of the industry. We're not budging on any of that, so I think we're absolutely going to be fine.
And the second question is, what were the inspection team sizes, and what are they proposed to be now? How many people are we cutting from inspection teams?
Well, I don't know what they were. I do know that the new teams will be less. I think it's 148 positions that will be removed. 148.
48. Is that the whole of the maintenance positions that you had on the prior page?
Yes.
148 maintenance. So they're all coming out of the inspection teams?
By and large. I will check on that and make
Okay.
sure I get you a better answer.
you.
Carmen, a quick question,
Yes,
please.
sir.
Is there a particular problem with the R44 fleet? Is that why you're getting rid of those quicker than the much older R32 fleet?
I am going to address that in a moment.
Oh,
If you,
thank you.
I will definitely get to that.
I think the other point that I took out of this, Carmen, is that the significance of regeneration and light weighting compared to what we've done so far. I mean, as you say, we're saving 17.5 is it megawatt or what would that be? Kilowatt hours, and we're talking about saving 750 kilowatt hours annually. I mean, the difference in what we could be doing to what we've done so far strikes me as being huge from the figures you've put forth right here.
You know, it's just something I think we want to keep front and center, and as we continue to look into the future, it's something we have to keep an eye on. And I mean, something we should always be pursuing, provided it doesn't take, from safety or reliability.
What is regeneration?
It's actually taking the energy from braking and putting it back into the third rail for reuse.
How does that work? Is it like a generator on the wheel or something?
Yeah, I would
Defer.
Winton, would you want to?
Essentially, that's what it is when the car is braking. The motor becomes a generator and generates that energy back into the third rail. That's what provides the safety.
Why wouldn't it ordinarily do that when it was just running and turning the wheel? Why braking?
Well, again, the way the car is designed, I'm not
Okay, I just...
Because when it's running, you're using power through the engine to make it run, and you're getting back that power. You're basically using the momentum to spin the electric motor And when you change the circuitry in it, which you can do with switches, you actually produce electricity through the electric motor as a generator
motor's
instead
not
of
doing
using it.
anything anymore.
The motor is actually using power when you're slowing the thing down.
I understand now. Thank you.
And anyone who wants to bet that Mark has an undergraduate degree in physics, I'm willing to take that bet now.
English literature.
Okay, I'll move on to the R160 contract. Final delivery for the R160 cars was on May 6, 2010. We are now 100% accepted. And I just want to go back, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, that in the middle of 2008, this initiative was actually behind by 5 months. So credit to the project team and to the car builders that they were able to bring this in on time and within budget. Delivery of the R160, that replaced the older 60-foot B division cars in the fleet. It was a joint venture between Alstom and Kawasaki. The entire fleet of R160s has been accepted, and the project remains within approved budget of approximately $3.25 billion. And that's difficult to see, but the R160 service lines effective with the service changes on June 27th will be the N, the Q, the E, the F, the L, the J, the Z, and M. New features being tested on the R160s include 5 cars on the N line where we're testing LED lighting technology. There's an additional cost to do that up front, but over the life of the car, the savings is that we'll never need to change out the bulbs, and again, much less energy use. So while there's some upfront cost, that's certainly moving us towards green technology. Another green initiative to be tested is increasing line voltage from 690 volts to 720 volts for the regenerative braking, and this is something we're negotiating with the car builders on our future purchases. On the E-line, we have 4 cars that are currently equipped with CCTV. There are 4 cameras retrofitted on each of these cars within the ceiling information sign. This is a 1-year qualification test that actually began back in February. And we're also exploring improvements on onboard service information. We're evaluating and testing ways to use automated announcements of service diversions in the 160s and other new Millennium trains. In the cars themselves, I think we recognize that given the level and the detail around the service changes that we have here, the weekend diversions, we really need to do the best that we can to ensure that our customers are up, that have all the information possible. There are some limitations on the cars today in terms of how much information we can deliver. It's not that we're limited in terms of how much they can deliver. Where we're limited is the ability to upload that data. It takes a very long time. It's very labor intensive to do so. And so we are now working with our engineering folks as well as LTK to look at different ways to improve communications on this fleet. And in my mind, we have to think of it sort of like we think of SMS in general, and that is, the technology changes so quickly. It's got to be something that we address at periods along the life of the car. So perhaps in the 40-year life of the car, it's something that we have to address a number of times in order to have the latest possibilities on these cars.
Excuse me.
There now, I'm sorry.
Just going back to the page before that, in terms of the cost of the vehicles, of the cars, the option 2 seems to be considerably more money than the price per car for option 1 and the base contract. Is there a specific reason for that?
He's not going to. This is long before Carmen was here, so probably not a fair.
I'm not sure if.
Well, I'm not
I
saying.
can answer that. In the contract, they had escalation clauses that were tied to certain factors. One had to do with foreign exchange, as I recall, and one had to do with a certain material cost index. And that was in the contract, and because the time between the base contract and the option was long enough, everyone agreed to these options, and essentially that was the reason.
And what was the time period?
between the base and the option, it was a few years. I can't tell you exactly. Yeah, we'll get back to you on that. 2 years? Thank you.
It's probably the cost of the euro. The change in the euro is probably a big factor in that, right? The euro went up from about $1.20 to $1.50 during that period of time. Can I just? Yeah, we should go back again today. I agree. I just want to underscore something about what Carmen was saying, because I think I think he's bringing a focus to this, both Carmen and Tom, that I've certainly appreciated, which is that we cannot look at our car fleets as being static over their 40-year life. That the fact of the matter is, we bought terrific cars in 1981 that are running on many of our RT lines and in some of the other lines. And the fact is that so much has happened since 1981. The idea that we haven't actually, any point to now, invested in putting audio-visual systems into those cars and retrofitting those cars, I think is wrong. That should have happened, because it matters so much to our customers, the ability to be able to do that. It wasn't that we made the wrong decision in 1981. Those systems didn't exist in 1981, but they did exist, in the last 15 years in a way that we could have been able to do that. We've got them on the new fleets. I think the point that's being made here is incredibly powerful. We have to be willing to spend some money now to bring the type of technology improvements, particularly around things like audio-visual information, other things like that, to some of our older car fleets where we have another 15 or 20 years worth of useful life. If we were buying a bus, we'd say we do it, and that bus only lasts 15 years. So why would we not do it on our car fleet where so many people are using it and we use it so intensively? And I think that the focus that Carmen and Tom have brought to this and the challenge, the way that we can look to do that, from my perspective, is usually appreciated. And I think it is the answer to, the combination of the type of electronic information we're going to have on the platforms and the information we can have in the cars is the answer to the frustration that many people have, including me, every weekend when we're trying to figure out whether or not the train is running in the way that it shows it on the map. And I think we have that opportunity and that in front of us. So I just wanted to second how important I think this really is for all of us.
So, given that philosophy, and I agree with you, what do you think would be the cutoff of a car life before you would make an investment like this? If there's 5 years left in the car's life, or 8 years left in the car's, I mean, we were talking at one point shortly after the London bombing, actually, there was talk here about putting intercoms in a good deal of the fleet so that one could communicate, especially in the cars with locked ends, you could communicate with the motorman and or conductor, because you could be cars and long distance away from them if there was an emergency. There was a commitment at that point to put intercoms in the R68 and R68A fleet, and yet not a move has been made to do that yet, which I think we have a good deal of life left in the R68 fleet, I would think. So, I mean, at what point do we not invest in the cars anymore?
I think there are three variables, right? I mean, I think there's a variable that says, what is the cost associated with being able to do this? You have the second variable, which is how do you really value the benefit that's really coming from that and looking at that. And some of that valuing is hard to do because when you get the issues of safety and security, it's hard to actually value some of that. But we need to try and to think about it in doing that. I think that the third benefit question then is what's the useful life that's remaining and how many years do you have to amortize that investment? I think the point I'm making is not actually to give a standard answer, but I think our mindset until recently had been, we bought a car, it had the technology that we bought with it at the time that we did it, and that's it. As we have new fleets come in, we'll bring new technology in and we'll look at doing things in different ways. I think what Carmen and Tom have brought to the table is a different mindset. I think they brought a mindset that says, gee, we can actually go back and do some of this. We can do some of it through our SMS program. We can do some of it in retrofits in different ways. We can look at some of the audio-visual things, even the stuff that we did on what are the newer IRT cars? What number, Carmen? The
142s.
The 142s. Even things that we did on the 142s are clearly not as good as what we did on the 160s. So maybe we can find a way to be able to go back and fix some of those things that are there. But they're going to be there for a long time, and it may be worth it to do those things. The point is you're seeing that thought process now. It'll be a discussion that I think should take place going forward at the TA committee where that discussion is taking place. But it is exactly the right focus, and I, at least speaking for myself, I'm usually supportive of seeing that change take place for the system.
It's a great focus, but at a period of time when we are turning our pockets inside out to find every nickel, the question is making investments in LED lights on older cars important in light of not having functioning intercoms on platforms, in light of not having security cameras that work? I mean, where do we put the money? It's why you're sitting in that chair, to make these tough decisions.
Right. And I think, and again, because I think that point is incredibly well taken. When you talk about LED lights, for example, that's a place where the financial analysis is actually quite simple, right? We need to look at the cost of what it costs to retrofit the thing. We need to look at the energy savings that are there. We need to look at the maintenance savings that are there. And we should do that if it's a financially beneficial thing to do. Right. The place where it gets a little more difficult, I think, is where you have investments that are not just financial investments, like LED lighting or braking systems or other things that are going on, but where you have investments where you're valuing a certain benefit that comes with it as well. A benefit that comes in terms of safety and security, a benefit that comes in terms of customer information and other things of that nature. And those are more complicated, and I absolutely accept that. And we may well be in a place where we say, you know, in the best of all worlds, we would do some of these things, but we may not have the ability to be able to do it. The only point I'm saying here is we haven't even had that discussion before. It has not been part of what we've been talking about and thinking about. I think what Carmen and Tom are putting on the table now is we need to have that discussion. We need to put it out there. We need to see whether or not it's worth it to be able to do it. And in some of these cases, the combination of some savings that might come from more efficiency, you know, energy efficiency, other things like that, combined with some of the passenger benefits that come with that, may say they're no-brainers the other way. Right? It may not really be costing us a lot to be able to do that. I just love to have that conversation and to know that we've thought about it in that way. And I think what they're doing is bringing that forward.
Thank you. Moving on, future car purchases. In the upcoming slides, I'll talk about the car plans, including the retirement of the R44s and the purchase of the Flush and Line CBTC and 7 extension, as well as the R179 contract. With our consultant STV, we conducted a structural survey of the R44 fleet and the remaining R32s and R42 cars. The study was complete in February of 2010. 8 R144 cars were inspected. They all showed corrosion-related structural defects. As a result, the R44 fleet will be retired ahead of the remaining 240 R32s and the 50 R42s, which were found to have remaining structural life. With the service changes that are upcoming, cars will be available to allow for the retirement of the R44s this year. And previously, the R44s were slated to be retired in 2014. Concurrently, the R179 contract will purchase permanent replacements for the R44s. Subsequently, the R32s and 42s will be retired. Now, the analysis also indicated that the Certoa cars, the R44s in the Certoa fleet, can remain in service while replacements are identified due to the less demanding operating environment in Certoa. They will be retired when modified cars from New York City Transit are available. Meanwhile, we'll watch them very closely. These cars have also undergone SMS overhaul work in 2009 that it included replacing of floors and motors, batteries, hoses, and repair of the lower skirt and roof, compressors, trucks, and propulsion controllers. So we will keep an eye on them.
Do you know what it is about the R44 that caused it to decay quicker than an older car? I mean, was it the way it was kept? Was it the roots? Was it or is it just the manufacturing
I wouldn't
method?
want to take a stab at that one, but I can get you an answer from the experts.
I don't know any detail about this, but I will tell you that both the R44 and R46 car fleets were troubled car fleets from the day that they were purchased. The R46 had quite a long history of litigation. I think the 44s did as well. I think the whole new car program that was put forth in the early 1980s with the 62s and 68s was in fact a reaction to what happened with the 44s and the 46s, where I think everybody felt that the planning and the preparation for that had not been of the nature in which it had to take place. I'm not sure how many people are still around who know the history of those cars. We're talking about the early to mid 70s.
Yeah.
shame. There goes some more conversational seating cars. We're losing them. Thank you. Across the aisle. Oh, that's true.
Okay, new and converted cars for the Flushing and 7-line extension, as well as converting existing R142 cars are needed for the 7-line extension and the installation of CBTC on the Flushing line. The award of this contract on May 28th has a base and an option. In the base contract valued at $116 million, it's 23 new cars, 2 11-car trains, and 1 C car, and the conversion of 1 10-car R42A train. The options valued at $493 million, and that includes 123 new cars, which is 8 11-car trains, 35 C cars, as well as the conversion of 35 10-car R142A trains. Delivery of the prototype will occur by December of 2012. The fleet completion in 2016, and all these trains will be CBTC ready. A C car is your A cars have your cab, the full cab. The B cars are, if you consider, like a non-power car, a trailer, and the C car has a free axle. That's the distinction, free axle for the CBTC.
It's for speed control.
It's speed control.
It's for speed control, so a tachometer can go on the wheel. It's not, there won't be any slipping or sliding due to power.
Proposed car purchases for 2010 through 14. The R179 purchase will provide permanent replacements for the R44 fleet, the oldest 75-foot cars operating on the B division. The 179 would replace the R44 cars with 340 60-foot cars based on the proven R160 design. This proposed schedule includes a base award in 2010 with an option in 2012. The base award is for 290 cars with the option of 50. Total cost at approximately $750 million. The contract will also increase mean distance between failure requirements from 100,000 to 150,000 miles. Project to modify rail cars for use on Staten Island will allow retirement of their current fleet. Complete work scope will follow additional engineering evaluations. In terms of future car planning, 2015 through 2019, at the end of our 28-year planning time frame, we'll replace cars as they reach the end of their 40-year structural lifespan. In 2015, we plan to award the R211 contract for a replacement of the R46 fleet, which will also include replacements for the Sotoa fleet. It's likely that this will be a base and option type contract. On the longer term for both the A and B divisions will include necessary fleet growth cars determined more closely at the time of contract award. And currently, future car length for the B division purchases is currently being assessed. So at the end of 2020, this...
Can you go before? Can I stop you from jumping forward for a second?
Absolutely.
Can you just go back to that other page? I think there's a couple things on here that, again, are worth this committee and the TA committee, and I'm not sure exactly where it sits, but the 60, 75-foot question is a significant question. It's one that I think that we should be back to the board at some point with that analysis. I'm not trying to push it until it's ready to be done, but it is a question that I think, and is a bit of an age-old question. I mean, it does start, the 44s were, of course, the first 75-foot cars. But we do need to come back, either this place or TA committee. I don't know what is the right place to be able to do that.
Jay, I think that issue is also a cost issue, because there's places in the system where a 75-foot car cannot go due to the tight clearances and curves and what have you of the Eastern Division on the BMT, for instance. So is it more cost-effective to buy nothing but 60-foot cars, which can go anywhere? I think that's the issue.
Right, and I think Tom and Carmen need to come back and come through with their analysis of that. But I just think it is something that we should see as an analytical presentation that says this is the way we looked at the cost, this is the way we looked at the reliability issues, this is the way we look at the question of having more doors on trains, because you could have more doors. You obviously have more doors if you have 10 cars with 4 doors and 8 cars with 4 doors, et cetera, et cetera. And we should let them do that piece. But I just wanted to put the marker down that it should come back to the board at a place in which we can feel not that we're getting in the middle of that decision, but that we've understood how that decision was being made and the analysis that sits behind that.
And I think we still have we still have some time before the R211 contract's going to go into design. And I think, as I looked at all the data, and there's a lot of data out there, on a lot of analysis that's been done by different departments within New York City Transit and with the consultants that we use. And I'll be honest with you, after you read it all and you sit down and you really reflect on it, you can create an argument either way. So it's really around what the future is of our system, and what's best for our customers. And
I think you just segued into, I think, from my perspective, the second point. And I think this is very much to this committee. I think one of the great difficulties when you sit in the role at the table, at the board table, when you look at something like this, is at the points that certain things come to the board and that we discuss things here, we're well engaged in a process and very difficult to be able to change or input or discuss it in a way that's actually helpful to the organization. The fact that you're sitting here now, 18 months to 2 years before you're going to begin design on the 211 cars, I think is the opportunity that we should be taking right now. We should set forth and think about what are the types of questions, like the 60, 75-foot question, the question on energy efficiency that we were talking about before, the question about the audiovisual systems and other things like that. What are the types of questions, in fact, that the authority is thinking about before it even gets into the design process? How do we lay those out now so that we all understand that those are the questions that are on the table, and actually have a process for coming back and engaging around those things? And I think as we talk about what you refer to, or what's referred to on the agenda as the semi-annual update in regard to cars, this is increasingly what our agenda should be, because it's the forward look at this at a time in which we can actually have a very valuable discussion about it. It also clears the way, I think, for the TA when it's ready to begin design, to know that there's not a discussion to take place. It could just go and do what it has to do to get that design done, and not be questioning whether it should be blue, red, or green. We've already had that discussion, and we know where everybody's head is at in doing it. And I think it's our opportunity to do it now. We don't always seize that opportunity. You've laid it out, I think, in exactly the right way, Carmen. And I just want to encourage that we do seize that opportunity. We do use this committee for that type of discussion. I think it's what makes it interesting to be able to do it here.
So, in essence, on this, can you go forward, please? So as we look at this slide, and we continue the capital investment in planning, the fleet age will evolve. As we, with the completion of the R188 project, the 179s and the 211s to replace the R46s, the A division average fleet age in 2020 will be 24 years, which is higher than the relatively young current age of 15 years. And by contrast, the B division cars will drop to an average of 13 years compared to 17 years today. So that's just a look what the continued investment will bring. In conclusion, all R160s have been accepted. The order is complete, on target, and within budget. The overall fleet and DBF and new car reliability continue to rise. New contracts have been awarded and proposed for new and existing service. And lastly, we will continue to look for new car enhancements to improve security, the customer environment, and improve our carbon footprint. Thank you.
Carmen, thank you very much. Were there any other comments, questions, or the like? Mike, is there something that you guys wanted to add to this discussion?
We had no comments on the car procurement program. Overall, we find that it is proceeding on budget and within schedule performance as reported.
Terrific. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Jay, if I may just add something. The Independent Engineers Report, maybe this program, the R160, was a very troubled program. And transit should get a lot of credit for turning this around. The deliveries were late. There were a whole bunch of issues, liquidated damages. It was right, exactly. If you remember all that history. And transit put people in the plants, worked with Alstom and Kawasaki, and turned this around and brought them in on time in the end. So it's a great story.
Thank you, and I think we should take that moment again. If you tie it back to Andrew's comment before, obviously there is a history. Not every car procurement does turn out that way. So I think it is. We shouldn't run past that without giving credit to all the people, and probably more so than Carmen, who's like me, new on the shop. There's a whole host of people who've been dealing with this for years and years, and credit to all the people who've really done that. Okay, the McKissick report. Okay, so we turned to capital construction. I think the intent was for the independent engineer to give their view on both the Second Avenue Subway project and the East Side Access project at this juncture. Gentlemen, we are in your hands.
Thank you. I'll start by summarizing the cost and schedule performance of the Second Avenue Subway project that's detailed in our report. Overall, the job is 22% complete now. That's a gain of 1% since our last report in March, and that equates to 7% since the revised cost and schedule was put forth to the committee last summer. Turning quickly to the costs, we're showing now 12% of the cost contingency consumed, very favorable in comparison to the 22% of the job done. However, the cost has ticked up 8 points since March, primarily due to the extra contingency put to the tunnel boring contract on a result of a reforecast of the costs. We have no direct concerns over the budget at this time. The schedule is a little bit more complicated picture. The project's reporting 22% of its contingency consumed. This certainly is in line with overall completion. It is a 45-point reduction since our March report, and it shows really the full benefit of the project's schedule recovery plan that has been developed over the last 3 months. We believe their plan's aggressive, and there are still significant risks to the project, both of delay and of cost with this plan. The tunnel boring is planned to be 25% better than East Side Access experience with similar equipment and similar rock. Relies on a just-in-time ground freezing program. Relies on overlapping the station excavations with the tunnel boring, something the original schedule was designed to avoid, but now we'll have the cases where two contractors will be working in the same area in a couple of circumstances. And we've compressed the schedule testing, the systems testing work by about 10%. So that's what's implicit in the numbers, and we show the dotted line from where we were in March down to where the project believes it is today. We've had several discussions with the project on this. They've had the full benefit of our views. They've moderated their plan somewhat, particularly with regard to the tunnel boring rate, and they're confident they can execute their plan. I think by next report in October, we'll have a much better idea of where we really are on schedule. We'll have 4 months of tunnel boring under our belt instead of 3 weeks, and we'll have certainly a lot more data to make a forecast. The last risk that's out there is the building remediation program. There we go, very at the bottom. The project's completed its survey of 72nd Street and is now before DOB for their review and concurrence. That concurrence is planned to come in a few weeks, and the project will then know where they stand in terms of what particular remediation, if any, has to be done, and then proceed with the design and the construction of that in parallel with the likely award of the construction contract itself for 72nd. Same situation is shaping up at 63rd Street. The contract is about 4 months out for starting, and the survey work plus the review with DOB for the results, and then the beginning of any design and construction work will take off at about the same time. So we see that as a risk, and the project's working hard to manage it. That's my summary.
Let's stop here before we go on to East Side Access. Can we get the slide back again, please? Questions that anybody has about this?
Looking at the report that was printed in the book, a couple of things jumped out at me. One of them you've addressed, that the tunnel boring machine has to bore at least 60 feet a day. Is that what we're hoping to see in terms of performance, or 65? You said 60 this morning, Michael, so I'm...
Yeah, the plan is actually 50 in terms of the schedule, I believe. Their plan originally around 60. They reduced it to 50 to give themselves some cushion for unexplained occurrences. Bill, is that...
Yeah, that's correct. The contractor's schedule had a much more aggressive rate of almost 65, 66 feet per day.
Right.
In conjunction with the IEC and their review, we've actually revised it to 50 feet per day, and that's what we're basing all of our interfaces on with the other contracts, and that's what our integrated project schedule is based on.
Okay. The second thing that jumped out at me was the rate of completion of construction remaining below plan, while construction management and project overhead fees seem to be racing ahead at the original rate unimpeded. Is there some relationship that one would normally expect to see between these two costs, and how out of whack are we relative to other projects that you guys have worked on?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing at this point, but basically the construction management expense is around 16%, and the total construction is reported complete at about 10%.
And soft costs are 40%, which
Yeah.
kind of
And
caught my
since
attention.
I have to agree with the project in reviewing my report, they felt that while that is truth, the soft costs include real estate and other activities that are kind of front-end loaded. So it's tough to draw a linear comparison from that. And if you drop the real estate costs out as a front-end load, you're probably down in a more reasonable comparison.
So, or how troubled are you by this?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 3.
Okay. Your report reads a little differently than that. It appears that it was an area of concern, which is why I raised it.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Doesn't
add.
sound upset at all.
I'm sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add just a bit of clarification on the soft costs. I think it's important to note that the 40% also, the soft costs includes our preliminary engineering, our EIS expenses, and our final design. And we're at about a 95% to 100% range of completion on final design, so that's a pretty big piece of that.
Are there concerns about the contingency, the rate at which we are drawing contingency down on this project?
Not cost contingency at this time. Schedule contingency, I still have a concern.
Carl?
Yeah, as far as the production that we're talking about, the 40 or 50 feet a day, have there been test bores done for the complete project so they know what kind of ground material they're going to be hitting as they get further along with the job? Because that would have a lot to do with any delays that might pop up if they got into some soft ground. Or
the answer is yes. We had extensive boring throughout the project, and I think we know what we're going to hit. I think that the problems that you normally face are at the very beginning when you are trying to actually get all of the systems to work as one, and that's really some of the delays. We don't expect, as we move along, I think that we'll produce the rate that we expect to.
All right, just for my information, though, do you know how far apart the borings were done? Were they done every block?
It's a long story. These borings go back to the 70s, some of them, and they were verified during the design process. There are some that were taken later on. In general, I would say that they were taking the 2 per block approximately. That's my guess.
Okay.
Right now. Right, Bill? About 2 per block?
It does vary, but that's a pretty good average.
So
we
you're,
actually.
you're, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say we used all of the historical borings, plotted those, and then as part of the program, they with new borings they verified the results of 30% of the historical borings, and where they got good correlation, they didn't do any additional new borings. Where the correlation was not as good, they increased the number of borings in those areas.
So the strata seem constant or consistent through the area where you're going.
With the exception of 2 locations that we discover later on. This is the one that we're freezing at 92nd, between 92nd and 91st, and potentially we're doing additional borings right now around 78th Street, again along the east side. All of the rest of the borings seem to be holding to the original work that we have done.
So you're way out ahead with the freezing and everything, so when you get there, you're not going to be delayed.
We expect to. We are not yet ahead. I mean, we are right now in the process of contracting and finishing the contractual relationship so they can get in and start freezing.
So you don't see a delay in them delaying?
We believe that we will be able to do it before the time that the machine will turn around. That it is sometime in January.
Thank you.
Between 70th and 63rd, how many borings were taken?
I don't know precisely.
Because I thought I heard you say previously that there were not many taken.
No, what I did say is that, because you asked me what are the lessons learned this morning between the freezing of the ground.
This was a prior conversation.
Okay.
You can't do it every 10 feet.
I did say that we cannot do it every 10 feet or 20 feet because of the length of the project. I did say that in retrospect, would have been nice if we could have taken in a couple of locations additional borings. The lessons that we learned there is that some of the borings that were taken in the 70s, the way the rock quality was defined in those times and today is different. So because of that, when the contractor came along this time around, they said, well, we believe that the rock quality is not good enough here. They had their own geotechnical engineers. So to make a long story short, we ended up freezing the ground in that area. But that's about it. I mean, in general, the boring program that was employed actually yielded decent results. I mean, we have 2 locations that we see problems, but in this type of construction, you're always going to see that.
But the rock quality shouldn't change.
The way you classify rock quality changed.
Maybe the terminology that they use to
well,
describe it.
They're using different techniques to assess the strength of the rock.
Okay.
So that's the.
No, I understand that. All right.
I'm not sure to whom I should be addressing this question, whether it's to Michael or to the independent engineer, but in whatever way. It seems to me that what's been outlined here is a fairly significant set of risks, perhaps not unexpected in a project of this size and complexity in regard to the schedule that's there. And I think Michael and Bill would describe to us fairly that they're aware of these risks and that they're dealing with them in various ways to be able to do that and to try to mitigate the impacts that are there. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but we've had this discussion, so I think it's probably fair to say that. I think the question that's running to my mind right now is we're at a point in which one would like to know at the earliest points whether or not the actions that we are taking in regard to this set of risks are actually effective to be able to deal with them. That we wouldn't want to let any time go by beyond that, and we want to have the earliest sort of warning that says, hey, this is working and we should relax a little bit, or this is not working and we should raise our concern level. Again, not to take away from anything, but I think, would say that there are undoubtedly questions in some ways about some of the stuff, and we may or may not be achieving the rates. We may or may not have success with the freezing technique that we're talking about, and some of these may or may not be of a high magnitude. So if they're not, then that's just great. But where is the point at which we can come back to this committee and say, having identified exactly this set of risks here on the schedule, we'd like to come back to the committee and tell you that, and maybe one by one, I don't know, this risk that was identified has actually been dealt with, and what we said was going to happen is working well, et cetera, and to give the committee comfort in regard to that. What would be the way to be able to do it? I'm not sure whether it's for whom it's a question, really. So I'm maybe for you, really, Michael. I don't know.
Clearly, we've identified, and we had that discussion correctly, there are risks in some of the things, the way we approached it, and these are calculated risks that we needed to take in order to be able to bring the schedule back on track. I would say that right now, the way we perceive that is that once the TBM starts moving along properly, we will then, one risk will be gone, because then we're going to start seeing that the TBM is delivering the production rate that we expected. Therefore, we will have certainty as to when we're going to be back and start the second run. I am less concerned, quite frankly, with
When do you think that will be, Michael?
November, December this year.
Is when you think the TBM will have the full running rate?
It will be gone. No, we'll go through to 65th Street.
No, but when's the place at which you are able to demonstrate the full running rate of the full running rate? Because you just said when you see the.
I would say that it is. We are now going through an area that we started by. We knew that with the production rate is going to be slow. I would say that within 2 to 3 weeks we should be really at a full blast going through the tunnel. That's my assessment at this point. The second one that is a risk, but it is only a risk in getting. It's just a risk in getting the work done, is the ground freezing. The ground freezing, in terms of methodology, is probably the safest way to go through there if we're going to do it. The question is, are we going to achieve the ground freezing in time for the return for the machine? We expect in January to actually be able to move through with the second run, and that is a risk that is to a certain degree is also a risk of getting the contractor on board. And we're working on it right now.
And again, when will we know whether we're successful at this?
We will know. If we're successful, is just to get a contract signed. That's really what we're looking at. I believe that in the next 2 weeks I should be able to do that. It's a must that I do that within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
There was no question asked about the building remediation.
Let me stay with this for just 1 second, Susan. I'll turn it to you. I guess what I'd like to ask is, having identified these pieces and knowing that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're at a point at which we should be able to demonstrate that we are on the path to be able to do this, either by virtue of signing a contract to allow for the freezing methodology to be there, or by virtue of being able to actually demonstrate that we have a running rate of 50 feet per day, if that's our goal in doing it. I would ask us to come back to this committee a month from now, not for a full-blown report, but literally picking exactly those items and speaking to the fact that, whether we have or have not been able to demonstrate what you had just indicated a moment ago. And I think we should use now, since it's a critical point in the project, we should use now to stay very focused on the things that have been identified as schedule risks. Let's, again, I think to the point Doreen was making a moment ago, let's push to the side the things that are 3 on our 3 out of 10 right now, and let's focus on the things that are identified schedule risks, which we accept, and we may well be able to give the committee comfort a month from now that we're in a great shape on it. Or better shape, yeah. I mean, that would be I'm sorry, Alan, I promised Susan, I'm sorry.
Yes. The first set we know exactly what we're doing, so that's. The second set is now with DOB. That we expect answers from them in July 12th to be more precise, and if that date holds, at that point we're going to look and review to see exactly what we need to do. So that may be a little longer because we'll have a debate. So I don't know exactly when the next CPOC meeting is, but I can tell you we can report what we'll know, but I'm not convinced at that point that we'll know exactly what to tell you.
July 26th.
Possible.
Okay.
Possible. By that time we'll know. Yeah, and
Okay.
we'll let you know.
Again, I think we should, you have a get out card on this one, which you say, but, you may say, look, we need more time, that's fine, but let's have it on our list of things to come back to the committee at that time. Alan?
If I understood correctly, you had said that the original contract provided for 66 feet per day, and that you've readjusted that to more realistic 50 feet per day?
The answer is a little different. The contractor, when they come in, they're supposed to provide us with a schedule as to how the work gets done. Mm-hmm. And their schedule show that they will average over the length of the project 66 feet a day. But that's not contractually binding, mind you. It is they have a date by which they're supposed to be finishing. They're liquidating damages beyond that and so forth. But bottom line, they are giving us the schedule for the work. We took that schedule and we said, okay, let's not necessarily be overly optimistic. And what we did is we said, well, the contractor we're only going to produce 50. As such, we based our work, our schedule, on 50 rather than 66. By doing that, we provide for ourselves a cushion, so we won't just, nothing happens exactly as one plans. So therefore, we provided ourselves a cushion to try to make sure that we're not going to just blow the target that we wanted the job to be done.
Okay, now this new schedule with the 50 days.
That's not the new schedule. This is our schedule. We're holding the contractor to his 66.
Okay.
So you understand? Because the contractor is held for his substantial completion that he has in his contract. There are some delays that are attributable to us. There are some delays that are attributable to them. So there are some excusable, some not. So we are holding them to their schedule. But for internal purposes, when we look at things, we have to allow ourselves a little leeway because things don't necessarily happen exactly as you plan from day one.
It certainly, I mean, and again, so my comments are misunderstood. It certainly seems to me that, in my experience with large-scale construction projects, you're taking a prudent set of approaches. You have a set of issues that come up. Things do come up all the time. You have a workout and a manner of mitigating those risks and being able to do that. I think all of that is actually sound. You've taken a somewhat risk-averse approach in regard to the schedule, which, given the history and experiences, is probably an appropriate thing to do. I just think we need to make sure that we have the right check-in points right now so that we can give ourselves confidence that the actions that you're taking are in fact delivering the result that you're hoping that they will deliver. And I think we are at a point in which we should be able to at least get an early warning system that will at least begin to start blinking green because we're feeling a little better about it, or let warning lights go off because some of the stuff is not happening in quite the way that we expected. And that's the only point that I would make about it right now.
So then, from what you're saying and from what Michael's saying, by July 26th, the next meeting of this committee, we should have a really good idea if we're achieving our 50 feet per day.
We should have a better idea.
Better idea.
We should, again, he doesn't have a, let's, again, remember how complex this project is, right? So I don't think we should be looking for simple answers on it, but we should be looking to increase our level of comfort as a board that we're going to achieve the objectives that have been set out, and I think that's what Michael's seeking and Bill is seeking to be able to do. I appreciate the way they're handling it. I want to make sure we have the right discussion at this committee as well. Mike, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I just wanted to offer a different opinion on the matter. I think it would be terrific if we received favorable performance over the next 2 to 3 weeks on the tunnel boring machine operations. I would feel much more comfortable with 3 months of production. That represents approximately 15% of the overall duration of the TBM operations, and I think for something as has been said and reiterated, as complicated as this is, I think a little bit more data is essential to feel better about what the balance of the TBM operational performance is.
Well, I do not disagree with Michael. What we will give you on the 26th are trends.
Yeah, that's fine.
Not necessarily answer that, we'll get between now and the 26th, we have 5 weeks, right? So we should be able to get some good trends, if nothing else. You're correct. In 3 months, we'll be in a much better position to know exactly where we are.
Okay, East Side Access.
All right, this is the East Side Access summary. The overall project is 31% complete, with 8% of the project completed since the rebaselining in mid-2009. We have 17% of our cost contingency consumed, which is an improvement of 2% over the last report, and is the result of the ability of the MTACC to free up $81 million in escalation savings in 2008 and 2009, and using some of the money to pay for current variances. The IC is currently reviewing the reallocation of the escalation savings and will report back to the committee the findings. The issue here is if the amount of savings applied is appropriate or not. Schedule, we have 40% of schedule contingency consumed. That's an increase of 8% over the last report, and due to ongoing design delays in Herald. In addition, the project team has reduced the duration of the systems contracts, and the IEC is currently reviewing this shortening of durations and looking to see if it's feasible or if these short durations for the project are feasible. This concludes my report on East Side Access.
Questions, comments? Can I just go back to Doreen's question before? If you were trying to say where your real concerns are within this, is there one part of this that actually gives you more concern where it moves above the?
For the East Side Access, the schedule concern currently is certainly higher than the cost concern, and the last bullet, which addresses the shortening durations of the system works, is of the greatest concern to us currently. The reason being is that not all the pieces are in place to have an easy or a quick and factual review. I think there is a lot of things that are currently still under development and therefore harder to evaluate.
So, Michael, if the schedule concern again here is the big concern here, I think both for Harold and for the systems work, at what point does the committee get greater comfort in regard to those issues, and how does it get that comfort?
I would like Alan to address that.
Let's start off with the systems piece. I would just add to Kurt's comments a little bit in that a lot of things have happened that allowed us to make the changes to the schedule that we did. We had design development. Our previous schedule was based on a 30% design. We're now heading towards 90% design. And we also changed the overall packaging approach from 5 packages to 3. So the logic changes and things like that led us to a significantly more detailed schedule. We're confident that at the end of this review that we're having with the IEC, that they will see that the schedule we have is a realistic schedule. We're looking at the end of the summer to have that at least initial review complete. We're also doing an outside peer review of our system schedule as well to see if they identify anything that is of some concern. So I think from a system schedule, by the end of the summer, the next CPOC meeting, we'll be able to report on where we agree and where we disagree, and I'm confident that there will be more agreement on that. As far as Harold is concerned, we share the concern for what's going on now. We've taken some significant steps with our designer to augment his design team. We've added some people on the engineering side, on the staff level. We've also added some managers who have Amtrak experience, who understand the importance of, I hate to say they understand the importance of quality, but our design team previously failed us in many regards. So we were forced to do a lot of designs 2 and 3 times, which lengthened the process. So I think in the next two to 3 months, we should have the remaining designs necessary for Stage 1 complete with Amtrak's approval. And when we come back, we should have the first set of Stage 2 and beyond submittals into Amtrak. I'd also add that on the MTACC side, we're bringing some people from HNTB to augment our team. They have a lot or Amtrak has a great deal of respect for these individuals and have signaled to us that they will yield to a large degree the reviews that they will do. Amtrak will trust those reviews. So having them as part of our team on the management side should help us speed up the design process and the approval process.
Amtrak people actually trust individuals, and the companies in this case become less important as long as the individuals are there. So we had to go through a process of identifying individuals that they trust so we can bring them on board so we can do that review. That's what actually, they will be under contract, I think, this week or the latest beginning of next week.
Your comment that your first design team failed to achieve this?
We're currently, now that we've gotten a good chunk of the design out of the way, we're taking the steps of beginning a forensic review of all of the problems we had with the design and looking to all of our commercial and legal rights and options to go back after our designer for both the direct costs of the design and the indirect costs of the schedule delays that we're incurring in Harold.
Would you like to update the board on who the designer was?
I would like to mention one thing, that it's a joint venture of the top firms in the country, actually. And I had a personal meeting with the principal, with the CEOs of these companies, and things have, since that time, improved dramatically. I can tell you who they are.
Okay, you can leave it at that. That's fine.
Yeah.
We will. I think for anyone, and this organization obviously has a long history of our interface in dealing with Amtrak. Anyone who believes that Harold was never going to be a complex issue with Amtrak was clearly missing the boat. And so to say now that we woke up to this issue and did it in a way that's going to be satisfactory in working with Amtrak sort of belies belief, frankly. And I'm a little floored at the discussion that says it in that way. So I just have to tell you, because there's nothing this organization has done for the last 30 years with Amtrak that wasn't a difficult process, and frankly respected the fact that the operational requirements of their railway and the operational requirements of our railway are sometimes at odds with each other. We know that. The Long Island Railroad knows that every single day of their existence, right? And so it's a shame to think that we were in a position in which we're now talking about doing it in a way that we could think about dealing with the Amtrak issue. I'm a little floored about it.
Just as a remark, this project was awarded in December of 2007, talking about the Harold. And unfortunately, it was awarded at the time. Actually, there was the bid in 2007, December, and I think the award was in March of 2008. And this piece of the work, at that time, the drawings were not approved by Amtrak. So it was bid without approved drawings.
Yeah, and again, I'm I may be, yeah, there may be longer issues and things like that, and I may be shooting the wrong messengers, and I apologize for that. But I have to tell you that it just, It's a terrible outcome, and it's one that was entirely predictable, right? I would have bet the rent on the fact that if you were going forth in the way you described, you'd be in exactly the situation here right now. And I would have given odds.
Just so this is a kind of a different team in that regard. So
okay, but
we're actually.
Well, but that will happen, right? That will happen. But it doesn't even seem like we took the first level of mitigation to avoid that, which is unfortunate. I don't mean to shoot the team that's here right now. I'm just telling you that it's a sort of mind-boggling story.
Duly noted.
And not one in which I think we should, this committee or this board or all of you should have patience with going forward, because it should not be the way we're operating. We have to deal with Harold in a way that we know satisfies not just the Long Island Railroad but Amtrak as well. Clearly, it is there. It's there right away, right? We know that. The Long Island Railroad operates every single day in ways in which we know these conflicts. We just have to find a way to be able to deal with that. And if we can't, then we will never have a successful project. And so this is, with all due respect to the issues right now, for listening to the report I just heard, I'll put this one at the top of the list. Right at the top of the list. Because it has more potential to bring this down than anything else. You cannot get from Jamaica to Grand Central Terminal without going through Harold, and we do not own that space. It's as simple as that. Okay. I'm sorry. Sorry for the rant.
No apology needed. It's well noted. But I would like to kind of sum up something that I think is much more positive. At the commuter railroad meeting this morning, we were very happy to see an agreement between Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and Capital Construction on how to proceed with making this into an operational railroad, because this contract is not only complicated in that we're dealing with Amtrak. Long Island Railroad is coming into Grand Central Terminal, and as anybody on the Metro North Committee will tell you, we feel rather possessive about that terminal. So we want to be sure that it runs very smoothly. And to me, this is a breakthrough agreement. We've been with Michael through how difficult it is to turn over something that's been constructed to operations. It's a lengthy process, and I think that this agreement amongst the three agencies is one of the best things I've seen. So I'm hoping for the best, and I see this as a very proactive step, which I'm glad to see.
Thank you.
Susan, thank you. And I think I really do appreciate that last point, because I do think that one of the things we cannot miss in this project is and very much unlike 63rd Street, which will not be a complete fundamental reworking of the way that New York City Transit operates. This is a fundamental reworking of the way the Long Island Railroad operates, and it has tremendous impacts upon the way that Metro North operates as well. And we have to keep that focus. I think it's one of the points of having the joint committee. I think that is one of the real positives, and being able to bring it in that way. But I think that point is very, very well taken in doing it.
There are other reports, but no presentation.
Other reports, but no presentation. So does this conclude what we're trying to do right now? Is that accurate, or is that what that means?
Yes, that concludes our report.
Okay. So can I ask for a motion to adjourn? In favor? All good. Governance Committee, I think, is meeting momentarily. Is that right, Jim? Where's Jim? He left the room.